When an INFJ gets hurt, much of the pain happens beneath the surface, hidden from the world and even from those closest to them. On the outside, they may carry themselves with grace and even a reassuring smile. But inside, they might be dying silently. Because INFJs are naturally private and protective of their inner world, the true weight of their hurt often goes unseen. They rarely allow others to see how much pain they're going through, preferring instead to process it in silence. One of the most unnoticed aspects of an INFJ's hurt is the way they internalize everything. They don't usually lash out or make a scene. Instead, they replay the painful event over and over in their minds, dissecting every detail and wondering what went wrong. Their natural tendency toward introspection becomes a double-edged sword here. While it allows them to search for meaning, it also traps them in cycles of overthinking. They will question whether they misread the situation, whether they said something wrong, or whether they simply weren't good enough. This self-analysis can become quietly tormenting, but on the outside they appear calm, as though nothing happened. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video. People also don't see how an INFJ's hurt changes their trust. INFJs are deeply loyal and open-hearted when they decide to let someone into their inner circle. But when that trust is betrayed, even slightly, they retreat into themselves. They might not cut the person off immediately, but something shifts. They start pulling away emotionally, protecting themselves behind an invisible wall. Others may assume they are just busy or distracted, not realizing that the INFJ has silently begun to guard their heart to prevent further wounding. It's subtle, but it's a profound change in their relational dynamics. Another thing people don't see is how much empathy an INFJ continues to show, even when they are hurting. They may be bleeding inside, yet they will still worry about how the other person feels, whether they cause them pain too, or if their own reaction might burden someone else. Instead of expressing their hurt, they will often bottle it up, not wanting to make anyone uncomfortable. To the outside world, it might seem as though they are unaffected or that they've brushed it off, when in reality they are holding back waves of emotion to protect others from feeling guilty or overwhelmed. Also, INFJs don't easily forget. They may forgive, but their memory is sharp, and the wound leaves a lasting imprint. Long after others think the matter has been resolved, the INFJ is still carrying pieces of it within themselves. They may find it resurfacing in quiet moments, late at night, or in seemingly unrelated interactions. The hurt lingers, not because they enjoy holding on to it, but because their minds and hearts naturally store emotional experiences so vividly. When INFJs get hurt, their creativity often becomes their outlet. Instead of showing their pain directly, they may pour it into writing, art, music, or deep conversations that disguise personal pain within universal truths. A friend might read something they've written and find it beautiful or inspiring, not realizing it was born from the INFJ's own wounds. In this way, their pain becomes invisible, transformed into something that uplifts others while quietly healing themselves. There's also the matter of withdrawal. An INFJ who is deeply hurt often pulls back from the world, needing solitude to heal. This withdrawal is not always obvious, because they may still fulfill responsibilities, smile at acquaintances, or hold polite conversations. But they no longer give their full emotional energy. Their close friends may notice that their warmth has cooled or that they seem less engaged, but many others will miss the shift entirely, mistaking it for normal fluctuations in mood. Another thing people rarely notice when an INFJ is hurt is the way their body subtly reacts to the emotional strain. Because they internalize so much, the pain often manifests physically in form of fatigue, headaches, or a sense of heaviness that lingers without obvious cause. They may find themselves needing more rest, zoning out during conversations, or even getting sick more easily because their immune system weakens under the quiet stress. Outsiders might think they're just tired from work or life, not realizing the root cause is the unspoken hurt they're carrying inside. INFJs also become hyper-attuned to patterns of behavior after being hurt. Once burned, they begin scanning the environment for signs it might happen again. A change in someone's tone, a delayed message, or a slight inconsistency in behavior becomes magnified in their mind. They're not being paranoid. Rather, their intuition starts overworking to keep them safe. Others may dismiss this as overthinking, but for the INFJ, it is a protective instinct sharpening itself to avoid further betrayal. This vigilance is hidden behind calm eyes and a polite demeanor, but internally it consumes much of their energy. Being hurt also quietly challenges their worldview. INFJs live by a deep sense of meaning, fairness, and human goodness, but when they are hurt, it shakes those beliefs. They may begin to question why people act in ways that cause harm, why their kindness isn't enough to shield them, or why their intuition didn't warn them sooner. This existential questioning is rarely spoken aloud, yet it is a profound part of their healing journey. It forces them to confront their own ideals, often making them feel isolated because they cannot easily share such weighty reflections with others. Their hurt also reshapes the way they give to others. INFJs are natural givers, pouring energy into relationships, but when wounded, they begin to ration that energy more carefully. They may still appear generous, but there is a quiet restraint, a holding back of their full self. The people around them might not notice, but the INFJ knows they are no longer offering the same level of openness. This subtle withdrawal is a form of self-preservation, protecting the tender parts of their heart until they feel safe again. INFJs can also overcompensate when they are hurting. Instead of showing their pain, they sometimes work harder to appear strong, cheerful, or even more helpful than usual. They may throw themselves into supporting others, excelling at work, or creating beauty in the world, as if to drown out their own suffering. To outsiders, it can look like they are thriving, but beneath the surface, it is often a coping mechanism to keep themselves from collapsing under the weight of their emotions. People also miss the way INFJs seek solitude not just for healing, but for reconstruction. In their private spaces, they're not only nursing their wounds, but also reshaping their vision of themselves, their boundaries, and their future. This rebuilding process is invisible because they rarely announce it, yet it is one of the most transformative things that happens when they are hurt. They come out of that solitude different, sometimes softer, sometimes stronger, but always changed. There is also the silence of their compassion. Even while hurting, INFJs often refuse to retaliate or speak ill of those who cause them pain. They carry the hurt quietly, choosing dignity over vengeance. To others, this silence may look like indifference, but it is really a deliberate choice to protect their own soul from becoming hardened. Their hurt does not turn them bitter easily. Instead, it deepens their empathy, though it also deepens the invisible scars they carry. Another vital thing people don't often realize is how long it takes an INFJ to truly heal. They may seem fine after a few weeks, smiling and engaging again, but the deeper layers of the wound remain for months or even years. Healing for them is not about moving on quickly. It's about integrating the pain into their life story and learning from it. This quiet, enduring process is hidden from everyone except perhaps a select few who are allowed close enough to witness it. When an INFJ is hurt, they start questioning their place in relationships. They may begin to quietly wonder if they are truly valued, or if they have been misunderstood their entire lives. This doesn't come out in dramatic declarations, but rather in silent withdrawal and deep, private reflection. To those around them, it may simply look like the INFJ is being quiet or thoughtful, but internally they are wrestling with questions of belonging and whether the connection they invested in was ever as mutual as they believed. Hurt also causes INFJs to change how they listen. Ordinarily, they are some of the most attentive listeners, giving others space to express themselves fully. But when wounded, their listening becomes more cautious. They still hear every word, but now there is an invisible filter in place. They are no longer absorbing with the same openness. Instead, they are evaluating, testing, and protecting themselves from being manipulated or blindsided again. This shift is almost imperceptible to others, yet it marks a profound difference in how they engage with the world. Another unseen impact of their hurt is how INFJs turn inward toward their inner visions and ideals for comfort. They may retreat into daydreams, fantasies, or imagine futures where they are safe, loved, and understood without condition. These internal landscapes serve as a refuge, a place to recover strength when reality feels too harsh. To the outside world, this can look like mere distraction or zoning out. But in truth, it is a survival mechanism, a way of restoring hope by anchoring themselves to possibilities that feel pure and untainted. People also rarely notice how INFJs wrestle with guilt when they are hurt. Even if they were the ones wronged, they often replay the situation and take on responsibility that doesn't belong to them. They ask themselves if they should have seen it coming, if they gave too much, or if they allowed someone too close too soon. This misplaced guilt becomes an invisible burden, weighing down their healing process. It is not something they openly confess, because they fear being told they are overthinking or too sensitive. Another quiet reality is that INFJs often test the sincerity of others after being hurt. Without announcing it, they may pull back slightly to see who notices, who checks in, and who genuinely cares. They are not playing games. They're searching for proof that their presence and pain matter. Often, this silent test determines whether they reinvest in the relationship or whether they begin the slow, subtle process of detachment. Outsiders may see only the calm exterior, not realizing that these small shifts are decisive and final for the INFJ's trust. Hurt also reshapes their creative output in hidden ways. While INFJs often create from a place of meaning and inspiration, after being hurt, their work can take on a sharper, more poignant edge. Their writing may become more layered, their art more haunting, their conversations laced with wisdom born of pain. Yet, to those who see only the finished product, the raw emotion beneath, it remains invisible. They don't see that the INFJ has transmuted private suffering into beauty that others consume without realizing its cost. Most people also miss how INFJs reframe their relationships with silence. Silence becomes their armor and their sanctuary. They do not explain themselves repeatedly or beg to be understood. Instead, they let the distance and quiet speak for them. To others, this may look like passivity or detachment, but for the INFJ, it is a deliberate form of strength. It is their way of reclaiming power without hostility, of protecting their dignity without creating conflict. One of the most hidden aspects of an INFJ's hurt is how it reshapes their relationship with vulnerability. Before they are wounded, they may open themselves more freely to people they trust, letting their true thoughts and emotions flow without restraint. But after hurt, they become more selective, not in obvious ways, but in subtle hesitations. A pause before sharing something personal, a deflection when someone asks how they are, or a polished response that hides their real feelings. To those around them, it may look like nothing has changed, yet the INFJ knows they are no longer laying their heart bare in the same way. Hurt also affects the way INFJs interpret silence from others. Ordinarily, they can find peace in quietness, but after being hurt, another person's lack of response or delayed engagement can feel like rejection or abandonment. They become highly sensitive to absence, noticing every gap in communication and magnifying it internally. What others see as trivial neglect can feel to an INFJ like confirmation that they are unworthy or forgotten, compounding the original pain they are already carrying. INFJs also often begin to change their routines or environments when hurt. They might rearrange their living space, take solitary walks, or spend more time in nature, not because they are restless, but because their surroundings become part of their healing process. They seek out atmospheres that soothe their inner turbulence, using external changes as mirrors for their internal shifts. Outsiders may see this as simple preference or quirkiness, but for the INFJ, it is an intentional act of recovery and recentering. Hurt also influences the way they dream, both literally and figuratively. Their sleep may become filled with vivid, symbolic dreams that echo their pain and confusion, as if their subconscious is working through what their waking self refuses to expose. Figuratively, their long-term visions for the future may change as well. They may revise their goals, redefine their relationships, or even alter their life direction based on the lessons etched into them by pain. This hidden reshaping of their inner vision is rarely recognized by others, yet it has lasting effects on their journey. INFJs sometimes punish themselves in small, invisible ways after being hurt. They might deny themselves pleasures they usually enjoy, overwork themselves, or refuse to rest, almost as if subconsciously believing they need to earn back worthiness. It isn't loud self-destruction. It's quiet self-denial, so subtle that even those close to them may not recognize it for what it is. INFJs also tend to retreat into books, music, films, or spiritual texts when they are hurting, not merely for distraction, but for resonance. They seek out words, melodies, and images that reflect what they feel inside, needing confirmation that their pain is not isolated. To others, it may look like normal entertainment, but for the INFJ, it is a lifeline, an external voice articulating the ache they cannot speak aloud. Being hurt also changes INFJ's relationship with time. They often find themselves replaying moments in slow motion, lingering on words, gestures, or silences that others would quickly dismiss. A single conversation can live on in their memory for weeks, each nuance re-examined until it feels etched into their very being. While outsiders move forward, the INFJ is still living partially in that moment, caught between wanting to understand it and struggling to let it go. This time distortion is invisible to those around them, yet it shapes how they process their pain. Hurt also affect their body language in ways most people don't recognize. An INFJ who is wounded might smile the same way, speak with the same warmth, or laugh at the right moments. But there are tiny shifts that betray their inner struggle. They may cross their arms more often, avoid prolonged eye contact, or carry a subtle stiffness in their shoulders. These are not dramatic signals, so they often go unnoticed, but they represent the quiet ways their body shields them while their heart is still exposed and raw. Something else that often goes unseen is how INFJs become more guarded with their energy after hurt. They may still show up for others, but their interactions are rationed with precision. Where they once poured their spirit freely, they now measure every offering of time and emotion, making sure it is deserved. Outsiders might not notice this recalibration because the INFJ still fulfills their obligations, but in reality, they're conserving their emotional reserves, learning to invest more wisely. INFJs also develop new inner dialogues when hurt. Their thoughts take on layers of self-conversation, with one part of them seeking healing, another part dissecting the pain, and yet another trying to offer themselves comfort. This inner chorus rarely breaks into the external world, so people never hear it. But for the INFJ, it is a constant hum in the background, guiding how they process and eventually release the wound. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video.